Hello, and welcome to the recording of the Law Help Interactive Community Call for March 2020. We have an exciting lineup of panelists covering various legal aid responses to the COVID-19 public health crisis. Apologies for attendees who joined our call earlier this week. We had some issues with our web conference software where the audio wasn't working, so we hope you enjoy this recording with our wonderful panelists instead. And in this recording, you'll hear from Jeannie Ortiz, Dom Hussein, Melanie Snyder, and Lisa Stansky. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. My name is Marinda McGelly. My email address is mmeghelli@probono.net. Also, you can reach out to Claudia Johnson, who organized today's discussion and recording, and her email address is cjohnson@probono.net. Thank you.
Thanks, Miranda, and thank you everyone for watching. My name is Jeannie Ortiz, and I'm the Pro Bono Strategic Initiatives Manager at Pro Bono Net. I'm based out of New York. And I'll just share a few things that we've been doing in response to COVID-19. We have at Pro Bono Net, we have a disaster response initiative to help and support legal aid programs across the country with information sharing, resources, networking, and facilitating conversations so programs and advocates in the legal aid community can strategize and think about ways to collaborate and brainstorm about the issues that that survivors of natural disasters see. So many of the same elements, so Pro Bono Net has been involved in disaster response since 9/11, and many disasters have happened since then, and now with COVID-19 we see that the same elements of the disaster response and recovery are very similar to what we're seeing right now with COVID-19. People with existing legal issues and limited resources are hit the hardest. The natural disaster or the pandemic in this case adds another layer of issues or challenges or makes the existing legal issue that a person may have even worse. So that's, I'll just share some of the things we've been doing and why we connected that to our disaster response initiative. If you could just go to the previous slide, just one more point on that. We partner with Lone Star Legal Aid to create the Disaster Legal Aid Advocacy Center after the 2017 major natural disasters. So think Hurricane Harvey, Hurricane Maria, to connect legal advocates in different regions. Since people in California, Texas, Florida, Puerto Rico were going through very similar challenges. And like I said, just go over the advocacy strategies, discuss the hot topics, compare service models, share outreach resources, and in a nutshell, just help each other out. And now you can go to the next slide. So knowing and learning from those experiences, exactly 2 weeks ago, we were in conversations with the Disaster Legal Assistance Collaborative, or DLAC, in California about a disaster relief session. It was a separate conversation, and thought, hey, you know, this is very similar to what we're discussing. What about a COVID-19 national call to see what programs are thinking? And this was a few days, actually I think of maybe like a week before the president declared a national emergency on COVID-19. And so these were some of the questions that led to us organizing a call to encourage and invite legal aid programs across the country to hear what they're thinking about, what they're learning, what they're hearing, and what are the things that they can share with other programs that might be helpful to just learn about what other people are doing and share. And if you go to, oh, I think this is the slide. Yeah, so we held 2 calls, and this happened for the past 2 weeks to go over some of the issues, and we identified over 15 categories of legal issues that just came out of those 2 calls. Just to mention a few, This COVID-19 will have an impact on agricultural farm workers, an impact on the consumer. How do we ensure that disability rights are enforced in this process, in the response process? Many employment issues and unemployment claims, issues around elder justice, impact on housing immigration, healthcare access, impact on veterans, since a significant portion are at high risk as well because they're older individuals. And other questions like, what's the impact on voting rights? It's an election year as well. So a lot of interesting things discussed, and if you go to the next slide, this is sort of a summary of what came out of those conversations. So out of those calls came a list of things that we hope are helpful or will be helpful to the broader justice community. And you can see for more information on the page that you see on your screen and subscribe to a listserv for updates if you're interested in plugging in. We're also working on a national directory just to identify who's the point person in a region or in a state that if we're interested in learning more about what you're doing or if we want to help you out, we can reach out to you. And if you're getting 1,000 listserv emails, like many of us, with a lot of webinar and resources related to COVID-19, you might want to also consider the Disaster Legal Aid Advocacy Center calendar. In partnership and collaboration with Lone Star Legal Aid, we're all hands on deck curating the resources and events that might be most relevant to the legal aid community and to advocates engaged in this work. So if you go to the link that you see on your screen, you might find other resources that you can find helpful in the work, and just maybe think about what are other programs doing, or are they deploying some of their disaster response strategies? How can I tap into this work, or what can I learn from what's going on around the country? And if you go to the next slide, so this is a sample, and then next slide. And I mean, we made this for advocates, but we can't know what's helpful unless you tell us. So my invitation is, if you're joining and watching this, if you plug into this network, feel free to reach out and tell us, or connect through the listserv and tell us, how could a group like this support your work? There's been a lot of conversation around remote legal services. How can we do this? We've never done this before, move an in-person clinic to completely remote. Like, what are the tools that are out there? We hope to include some information on that as well. And like I said, what are some of the things that you can learn about what other states or programs are doing? I think a lot of this is new to a lot of us, and I see a lot of value in sharing that information with each other. So I've included my email there if you want to reach out, and always happy to answer any questions into what we're doing, and I think this will be an ongoing thing, and it'll be developed over the next few weeks and months. So hopefully it's a helpful resource for everyone watching. Thanks, Miranda.
Thank you, Jeannie. Now we'll hear from Dom.
Thanks, Jeannie, and thanks, Miranda. Yeah, so I'm just going to be talking about our remote legal support program at Pro Bono Net. My name is Dom Hussein, and I'm the AmeriCorps at Pro Bono Net right now, serving as the remote volunteer project coordinator. And I'm just going to talk about some background info, key findings, and then a sample document just to see how the guide that we made can be useful to organizations. You can go to the next slide. So remote legal support, we broadly defined as a technology-based approach to providing off-site legal consultation, support, and services to underserved and rural areas. Of course, at the moment, remote legal support is being more broadly applied to those in need. And even when we were drafting the manual, had underserved, more encapsulated people who sat in compounding systemic positionalities of like social inequity. So we were keeping that in mind while we were formatting our guide. You can go to the next slide. And then, so how the program started was a group of about 10 organizations teamed up with Pro Bono Net to start a program and conversation around best practices around providing remote legal support. And that eventually led to a couple monthly meetings that that revolved around potentially endeavoring to survey the field and see what the interest, capacity, and best practices were around remote legal support. So in 2019, and around February, we conducted a national survey in the immigration nonprofit field. And then after analyzing and synthesizing those survey results, created a manual with a couple of partner organizations. You can go to the next slide. So the survey that we conducted was largely legal service providers. It was sent out to 2,000 organizations, and we received 200 individual responses. And a lot of the survey statistics, though they revolve around legal service providers, aren't limited to legal service providers, because we found that remote legal support is dependent on a lot of community-based organizations and community partners providing either referral services, intake services, or some other type of partnership services that helps remote legal support providers and service providers conduct their programs. Can you go to the next slide? So what we found, some key takeaways were that 46.9% of respondents had no remote legal support experience. So that means that even those who were community-based organizations didn't have experience providing remote intake or services over email or fax. Like, there was very limited amount of perceived experience with remote legal support, and nearly 80% of legal service providers were interested in providing remote legal services. And all of this is before the current pandemic. So we've seen a real spike in interest and necessity for remote legal support. But regardless of that, a lot of organizations perceived their organizations structurally and knowledge-wise unable or ill-equipped to provide remote legal support, whether that be because they didn't have the technology know-how or they didn't have the budget to invest in certain technologies. But what we found in collaborating with this project was that this wasn't necessarily the case, and that for the most part, most remote legal support programs depend largely on telephonic systems and not so much so on custom-built or extremely expensive technology or software programming. Next slide. So the guide that came out of this partnership and collaboration came out of about 10 organizations' contributions, as well as Pro Bono Net, and some other organizations that contributed their service delivery models. And the guide contains survey results, documents specific technology tools used in remote legal support, shows service delivery model examples, and then also involves and includes information on working with volunteers in the community, and has sample documents like limited service agreements and unbundled services agreements, just so organizations can have specific references if they're hoping to create their own remote legal support programs. The next slide. And so an example of one of these sample service delivery documents that is supposed to help organizations see just sort of the workflow and how specific programs work and see different examples for them to model their own potential programs after is the Family Offense Petition Program is the one we're going to feature here. And you can go to the next slide. So this program is a statewide program. There's a partnership between Pro Bono Net and New York State Courts and over 100 different other advocate groups. And you can go to the next slide. The specifics of this program aren't the topic of these specific slides. What more we want to show you is that within the guide, there's workflows and examples for organizations to model their own potential programs after. So right here we have, for advocates, step-by-step, the processes that they have to go through in order to participate in this program. And the organizations can use these documents within the guide to help them understand not only how other organizations work and how they might work with existing remote legal support programs, but also consider how they might synthesize and combine and borrow different ideas and strategies in order to customize their potential programs for their community, because that was one of the biggest findings, was that organizations that had the most successful remote legal support programs had very community-centered values and engaged with their community when they set out to create their remote legal support programs. And you go to the next slide. And that's really it. As far as more information and upcoming events, you can access the manual on the Immigration Advocates Network's website or by visiting Pro Bono Net's blog, Connecting Justice Communities, as well as provide feedback on the guide. The link to that is inside the guide. And then you can sign up for updates through that same link as well. And then there will be a webinar on April 2nd at 2 p.m. Eastern Time that experts in the field of remote legal support will be providing support. And that's really it. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Dom. That's really helpful. And for those listening to the recording, we'll be adding some of the hyperlinks discussed to the cover email. So next we'll hear from Melanie Snyder, who's at the Judicial Council of California. Melanie?
Hi, thanks, Miranda. I am going to talk about using video conferencing for the delivery of self-help legal services. We have a set of counties, 23 counties in California, that have developed a program. And before I came to the Judicial Council, I actually helped to develop. I wrote a grant and started the process to develop this program. And what it is a collaboration of counties that use video conferencing to deliver workshops. So can I have the next slide? So I think by now, weirdly, because of this disaster, people know what remote video conferencing is now. It is a way that we can all communicate without having to be in the same room. So can I just have the next slide? So courts in California are, again, they're using video conferencing to deliver workshops with people gathered in rooms. There's another county, Ventura County, California. It developed a whole series of webinars, live webinar sessions that are sort of a workshop, but people are situated remotely. California is also experimenting and has in Fresno County and a few of the other counties some video appearances into the courtrooms. Placer County is also working on this. We have a new program that allows video conferencing for child custody mediation. And we also have video appointment scheduling. And so luckily, we were able to experiment with this idea of video conferencing in our state for a few years now, prior to this, again, disaster that's happening. And it is helping us to move quickly into being able to handle the situation and be nimble about attending to people's needs. Can I get to the next slide, please? So, in order for others to replicate what we've done, we really discovered that it's not very expensive to put together a video conferencing program. You need a computer with a webcam. Most of them, at least most laptops already have them now. You need a computer, microphone, and speakers. Again, a laptop is probably set up to go. If you're going to have a workshop room full of people, then you're going to want a big LED or other kind of screen so that people can see what's going on. And the video conferencing software that you need, actually, so far in my experiencing, Zoom is really the best, and it's free, and you don't need any software. Can I have the next slide, please? So, yeah, so this is a trick question. You don't need any software. It's just a web service. So you can just go to the sites and access the Zoom.us or the Skype and start using it. Can I have the next slide? So again, the cost is fairly minimal, between $4,000 and $2,000, depending on what you want to spend per site. But again, most people would be able to remote in. Most people will already have basically what they need to get going, so you can still deliver legal services. You can still deliver legal information and help people to access what's going on in their courts by using a video conferencing system, and it's not too difficult to put together. Can I have the next slide? So, in California, we have 23 courts that are connected to one another throughout the state. Some of the courts are also connected to other sites within their own counties, and they are using this video conferencing platform to assist with one-on-one interviews and assistance. They are using video conferencing in combination with the Law Help Interactive document assembly programs, and are able to assist people through using those programs. They are using Eventbrite, which is a free calendaring system, and also Calendly to have people sign up for sessions. And so as long as you're not charging, then Eventbrite is free. So can I have the next slide, please? So in order to assist with the COVID problem, Wendy Trafton at SHARP, which is the program that is coordinating this whole video conferencing program, she put together an instructor's handbook, and it walks through with pictures and screenshots of how to connect and how to use video conferencing to enable the remote delivery of legal services. So can I have the next slide, please? At the Judicial Council of California, we have what we call the Equal Access website. It's a little bit hidden on our site. If you go to the Judicial Council home, you can look on programs, and within that menu you will find Equal Access. You can get to this page, and at the top you can see we have banner with a link to our Self-Help Center materials. Within that is this handbook and a whole host of additional materials, including signage for courts that have been translated into several languages. We've got the Natural Disaster Handbook, and we've got this instruction manual. So if we can have the next slide. The next, I think I missed a slide in there. The next, the Equal Access website, if you just go to, as I said, California Courts, which is www.courts.ca.gov, and then you go to the programs link and come down to Equal Access, you can access that site. If you need to have more information, please feel free to contact me. Here is my contact information. Thank you so much, and please be safe. Thanks, Brenda.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me. This is Lisa Stansky from the New Orleans office of Southeast Louisiana Legal Services. We're a civil legal aid provider. Here is my segment for this presentation. We're dealing with a new kind of natural disaster, the online response to COVID-19. Here you see, of course, a mobile device. This is a lifeline. Now, more than ever, we will pivot to adapt and make the most of that reality. Here's the situation now in New Orleans. Some of you may be already aware of this. Things are difficult everywhere. The source of this information is NOLA.com. And here are the current statistics published today. Now, the thing that's difficult for all of us are the legal repercussions and the repercussions for the judicial system, the legal system, and all providers from this public health emergency. Here's an image of one of the Supreme Court's orders. These are not unfamiliar to you. People are dealing with similar mandates and orders everywhere around the country, and everywhere around the globe. Now we're going to take a little trip back to 2016 when the New York Times heralded the advent, actually we've been using it for a long time, but the advent of online forms and resources to address issues affecting primarily low-income people by the civil legal aid community, and in particular, Law Help Interactive. Since this is a document assembly community call, that's why I'm focusing on LHI, Law Help Interactive resources. This may be familiar to some of you. Here's one of the resources I developed with generous support from the Technology Initiative Grant Program. This is an automated version of one of our most heavily used resources from our Law Help site, louisianalawhelp.org. SLS no longer administers that site, but we still have these great online resources, and this is an online version of that former Law Help resource called Unpaid Wages Demand Letter. Now, in these times, this kind of resource may be just incredibly important, and I'll explain why, especially here in New Orleans, really dependent on the hospitality industry, on all kinds of services from bars, restaurants, hotels. Many, many people are being let go. We hope most employers are treating their workers well, but this kind of resource gets heavy use even in the best of times. So we can imagine that some people might have to avail themselves of this resource in rough times. Now, there are some special challenges on both ends of the spectrum when it comes to having an online response to a national and natural disaster like this, a public health emergency. For one thing, some courts are not accepting paper. Some courts are not set up for e-filing. Now, this particular resource is what I'd call an extrajudicial resource. It's not dependent on the court system at all. But still, people have to be able to access this. They have to be able to print it. They have to be able to send it. And all of those steps in the process are really changing by the minute, by the hour, by the day, everywhere. everywhere across the country and everywhere across the globe. So these are some of our ongoing challenges in helping to support people address the issues that are coming up for them in response to COVID-19. This is the way our particular resource looks in the palm of your hand from a mobile device. It was actually devised for computer use, but we are finding that some of these resources are already being able to become very mobile responsive and adapt to the mobile platform. Okay, this is what lawyers in courts are used to dealing with, mountains and mountains of paper. And that is something we are just not going to have easy access to for at least the coming weeks, maybe months. The other thing our self-represented litigants, our self-represented people, unfortunately have to deal with is a tidal wave of information. Part of what our mission is to help people surf that wave. Here is one way that we're doing this in partnership with the Law Library of Louisiana. They were a great partner for our original Technology Initiative Grant Program to launch automated forms and companion library-friendly guides, LibGuides. Now, many libraries are closed to the public, but they live online right now, and people can continue to access their resources 24/7. Here's a live link to the LibGuides page for the Law Library of Louisiana, which has graciously published all of our online forms and LibGuides, including the ones that we have developed under a present Technology Initiative grant funded by the Legal Services Corporation. Here's their page, Resources for Self-Represented Litigants, Online Forms. Here is the desktop version of that unpaid wages resource. You will see on the left that there are tabs that allow people to easily navigate different aspects of the guide. Yes, this guide is text-heavy. There's a reason for that. It's intended to be library and librarian-friendly. They're information experts. They want information, but they want information they can rely on and use to help patrons. So this resource is deployed for individuals, but it's really intended primarily for librarians. That's why it's more text-heavy. But in an effort to serve all people across the spectrum, we've inserted things like helpful videos. I'll show you a close-up of that in a little bit. Here again, close-up version of this resource. You can see the tabs on the left, including some how-to resources. Here's one of those how-to resources. It's from an outfit called Biteable.com, and it's a really quick video to show people how to deploy an online form, how to use these online forms. Online forms are now part of our DNA. The legal system's no exception. So here's a quick video that anybody can use. This is not proprietary to us. You can adapt and use this for your own online forms programs. It's a quick little video to show people how to use their online forms, meaning how to use an online forms program. Here we go again to the Unpaid Wages Demand Letter resource. Here's a close-up version. I'm going to back up. If you click the tab, Create an Unpaid Wages Demand Letter Online, I know I keep going back to this resource. We have many resources. This is what the user will see. This just gives you an idea of the environment our self-represented people are working in. LHI has created another great how-to video to help people navigate the Law Help Interactive site. The Law Help Interactive site is the national server that hosts all of the civil legal aid community's document assembly resources. Now, our particular resource uses a combination of two programs. I know I'm getting a little bit tech-heady, gear-heady here, but we use something called Access to Justice Author. This is what you're looking at now. It creates a friendly, avatar-based online interview system where people page through an interactive program like this. The program asks them for information. People type the information in, like, what's your name? Where do you live? When did you last work for your employer? What's your employer's name? Then that information gets sent to the Law Help Interactive server, which inserts it, meshes it with a document I created via Hot Docs. It's something the legal community, the commercial legal community uses extensively. It's a document assembly program which will allow the insertion of those critical data points, name, address, phone number, and so forth, into a finished document that will be delivered to the user in Word. So here's what the online interview looks like. Here's another screenshot. You can see it says, what's your name? Please type in your first name and last name. And the person who's the self-represented litigant gets to choose an avatar as well. Now, when you're all done, here are the options for an individual. In these times, not all these options may be available immediately. People may not be able to print their work, but people can usually download their forms to a device. They can email their work to themselves. So what they can do is they can create resources, email them for use at a time when they're able to access them. And again, what we're talking about here primarily with this particular resource is an item that doesn't depend on the legal system. We have another similar resource, which is a security deposit refund package that has a series of letters to help people request a security deposit that was paid to a landlord and not refunded. It has a companion information guide. I'm not going to go through all the resources available, but if you have an opportunity, if you're interested in visiting that Supreme Court Law Library of Louisiana site, you'll see what we've developed. Librarians are heroes, so we're giving them a shout out here. Again, here's that site from the Law Library of Louisiana, Resources for Self-Represented Litigants, Online Forms. Here's a list of those forms, and not all of these belong to Southeast Louisiana Legal Services. The Law Library of Louisiana publishes a whole host of resources, but these online forms with LibGuides were created with the support of the Legal Services Corporation Technology Initiative Grant Program, or TIG program. Here again is that link. This is just something to remind us all that the future is now. And here is my information. Please reach out to me with any questions or concerns. I'd be glad to try to help you with your own projects to get these kinds of resources online and working. I want to thank you so much for having me join this call. Really appreciate this, and I really appreciate the work of everybody everywhere to share what they're doing and to help us all get through this together. Thanks very much, and have a great day.